with the design company. But yeah, it was a shame because
Yeah.
there was a lot of changes happening. It's like, well, usually when there's a lot of changes to a project, it usually means that they're really into it and they're really like, yeah, we really want to go this direction. And then in the end, when it came out, it wasn't used. So it was a real shame. But that's the way it goes sometimes. You can't. It's not our choice. It's the people, with the most to lose. It's their choice.
Welcome to Your Local Cineplex.
Welcome back to Your Local Cineplex. I'm trying to hold my excitement for today's guest. Great guest, Paul Shipper. And if
Hello.
you don't know who this guy is, I don't know what to tell you. But he is a talented poster artist. You pretty much have seen his posters. If I may say, Paul, you're definitely, you're leading the charge for poster artists and having studios go, I guess there's something to these illustrated posters. Maybe we should make a budget that allows to hire an illustrator on to make these posters instead of the beautiful Photoshop collages we get. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. No, it's good to be here.
I don't think there's any higher the podcast can go. Well, if Drew Struzan would ever want to do a podcast.
There's a lot of people out there doing movie posters these days. So I feel like I'm middle of the road really, as far as maybe a little bit above, like if you were just gonna look at illustrated posters. But as far as posters go, it's not.
Right. Yeah.
But I've been trying to for the last 15 years probably trying to keep movie posters, the illustrated feel, the aesthetic of the movie poster that I grew up with and that many of us love, trying to keep it in the front of people's minds. For a little while it started to happen, and then more and more people have realized that they have a love for the illustrated poster too, and the art of the movie poster, which is something that I think is important and still is important in this day and age, despite it being a very digital realm. The thought that goes into a movie poster for a lot of people, it might still be the first thing that they see even before a trailer, and it has to kind of give a vibe that it'll pique their interest to kind of look into it more, and to for an audience member to devote their the money, time, whatever it is to put themselves through something. So I'm a great believer in as much truth in advertising as possible, so that if somebody sees a poster and then goes to see that movie based on that poster, you want to make sure that they at least don't come out of it thinking, well, that wasn't what I signed up for.
Right.
That's something that's important to me.
That's a good value or goal, to have truth in advertising.
Try to.
You try to, because it's nice to know. It's nice to hear, because that's when I was in college and learning advertising. That wasn't the goal. It was.
It probably never was the goal. But for me, I would base my movie-going experience sometimes off a poster. Trailers seem to give too much away sometimes, whereas a poster is can be a bit more mysterious and kind of give you the intrigue for something. And so I would look at posters more and kind of, if it's a good poster, I'll probably go and see the movie. And then sometimes I would be disappointed with that movie because it didn't live up to the poster, or, that kind of thing. And so, but it is difficult, because when you're working on some of these big movies, you rarely get the chance to actually see the film and get a real sense of what the film is when you're working on a poster. So you have to kind of go off the creative directors, they've probably seen a screening of it, and so they're trying to explain to you what it is. Right. So you have that, but you personally don't always get the chance to see it. But when it comes to some movies I get screeners for, I get to see the film before you work on the poster, and sometimes it's mostly the lower budget ones that you get to do that, and you get a lot more freedom. You can kind of play around, and
That's good to know. I mean, I guess that makes sense. That you said the lower budget ones are the ones that you usually get to see a screener for.
yeah, or sometimes like there'll be like there's been times where I've worked with the director themselves have just liked my work and then got in contact with me, and so working with the director and kind of it's their vision for the film, and so it can make it a very in-depth kind of design situation where you have to try and meet what's in their head, and that can be very difficult too.
Yeah.
It's down to the individual you're working with, really. Some people are very kind of like, whatever you do is going to be cool. Some people are like very specific, and it's every job is different, which makes this profession quite interesting, really, because the people you work with, the experiences you have are very different, almost different every time. You can't really although my process might remain the same or similar throughout each thing, the creative arc can change dramatically client to client. So, and sometimes I'll be working on 3 or 4 projects at a time, and so you are working with 3 or 4 different clients who all have different ways of working. So but it's good. Like, you'll show something to somebody, then it gives you like a day or so to work on the other project, and then you show them, and then you have a bit of extra time to work on the next project. Right. And so you kind of keep rolling it like that.
That's a good way to work. That helps.
It's a way. I don't know if it's a good
it's
way.
It's a way.
It's a way of trying to juggle
right.
projects. It seems to work quite well for me. Like, I mean,
I think I prefer that's like you said, that's a way to work.
It's a way of managing each project, and
right.
So you have to have a give and take. Sometimes it's just you don't have 3 or 4 projects, you just got one. It's not all the time, but I'm just saying, like, it can be that way. You have to kind of work slightly different for each client, or you have different feedback to kind of contend with, or at the end of the day, we as illustrators or designers, our job is to really please the client as best we can, and they have to also realize sometimes that we're not mind readers, and right. We just do our best, the knowledge that we've picked up over the years, and to try and meet their expectations, and sometimes surpass the expectations, which does happen, which is always nice when that happens. You really know you've done something good when they have expectations and you kind of obliterate those expectations, then they're just blown away by what you've done. They're just like they can't believe it. That's the real icing on the cake. I always kind of wondered why. At one point I was like, why is there so many posters for this movie? I was like, I don't know, say 20 posters for one movie. And it was almost to try and hit every demographic possible and not to offend anybody and just make everybody happy. It's like, and that's why the character poster came, there's all these 10 character posters. Okay, it's not, well, we want to give everyone their own poster. Okay. All right, you don't really need to, but I think if I can see, different countries have different visual language, and right. I can see why different countries might have different artwork or different, because some countries read from right to left in a book. Or so when they look at a poster, they'll read it that way. They'll read it a different way than the way that we might read it. And so I get that, but I don't understand why they would have so many for the same territory, or that kind of thing. To me, it's like one I think the best way of doing it, and this is why I grew up, was a teaser poster, which is cool, like really kind of like oh my god, I can't wait to see this. Then a main poster which just blows you away even more. That is the best combo. It's like the really, 1-2 punch, right?
Yeah.
I think that is the. If you can do that, great. You don't need everything else. And then that artwork can live with, that movie for its entire life. That would be the best option, I think.
Right.
And then if it's re-released, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, when that came out, it had the Amsel poster, the main Amsel poster, and then I think when it was re-released the following year, it had another Amsel poster. It was a different poster, which had more characters on it, and it's kind of like embellished. It was beautiful. Both of them are beautiful posters, but the first one is a bit more kind of like simple. It's like just Indy holding the whip, and then a little bit of action scene down the bottom, and coming down, like Indy's coming down a rope. It's quite simply. It was a beautiful design. And then the next one he did was like with him holding the whip, and like a round shape behind him, and then characters down the side, with the arc at the bottom. And yeah, but that it just had a bit. It was a bit more. It had more going on. It was kind of. I think that if that's acceptable too.
Well, I agree. We talked about on the podcast before of like you don't see the guts anymore with posters, with the whole teaser and then the 1-2 punch. So you look at Jurassic Park, right? That teaser poster, it was just the logo, right? And again, this was like, yeah, Steven Spielberg was like, he was getting big, right? But he didn't have I don't know the big clout he did. And yet they just do this simple poster for the teaser. And it wasn't a well-known IP at all. But yet they just did that. And I'm like, you don't see that now.
No, that was quite bold, actually. I mean, that was... It's a bit like Jaws, because Jaws, the poster was the same, similar as the book cover, and then I think Jurassic Park, the book cover was almost it was almost like we'll take the book cover and kind of make the poster out of it had the dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton.
Oh, it did? The book cover had that?
I think so. I think the original book cover had that. I seem to remember that. I might be wrong, but it's just like it's a funny correlation to Jaws, because I think the original painting for the Jaws book cover was the same painting that they used for the movie poster, which I might be. Again, I'm not
that
no
sounds
expert,
familiar,
but I'm just going off what information I have in my brain. But I seem to think that, but and that's kind of because in some ways Jurassic Park is like Jaws but with dinosaurs, kind of.
Right.
You actually don't see like the dinosaurs for a long time in that initial movie.
You're right, yeah. He holds them back. Yeah.
I think now it's like if you're the new movies, it's like probably dinosaurs for two solid hours. But in 1993 it was like they kept you waiting for a while until the reveal. Almost, it's what it felt like. But it was, I mean, great movie, great story. And that's where that movie was great, because it was a theme park. So a logo for a theme park is a good move, rather than an ensemble kind of illustrated movie poster. To me, they actually worked for that movie. Whereas usually I'd expect to see. Another one was Batman, like the 1989 Batman. I love that movie. The poster was a oversized bat logo that, when I saw it, I knew what it was. But when my parents saw it, they're like, "Why like gold teeth. They thought it was a
Oh, that's
mouth
funny.
with gold teeth, and the black in the middle was the opening of the mouth. So
That's funny.
people saw it differently. But for me and my generation, we knew what it was straight away. But the older generation just couldn't kind of figure that out. But yeah, I must have, I could draw that bat. I can draw that bat logo kind of with my eyes closed. I've drew it that many times. The hope is that you're able to create something that people will like, and that will serve the purpose for that particular job, and that it'll go down well, and people will, enjoy it and see it and be moved by it, and hopefully the client will be happy with the end result. So like I just did a poster for Gina Carano's new movie, Terror on the Prairie. That was very a great project. I mean, they had a little concept of the movie poster. It wasn't working, and so I could step in, look at it, and see why it wasn't working, and then say, well, how about this, how about that, and then it just kind of flowed super well. We actually had very little time on that. We got it done in about 10 days turnaround, and I'm so proud of that poster. It's like I almost felt like it was one of the best things I've done. Like, it just felt like, I don't know, especially being able to turn something around almost from scratch in a short time for them was a great thrill. And they love it. They're over the moon with the poster, and they've been using it a lot, and it's just so nice to see the artwork being used,
Right.
And it's not going under the radar. They're actually proud of it, and they're like, this represents our film, and this is what our film is, and we want you to see this, and they're putting it out there, and that's how it should be. Whereas, some projects, I haven't always got to work on the main poster, say, and so the main poster would get all the fanfare, and then the illustrated one, the fans would love it, but it didn't get it just kind of gets forgotten about, sometimes.
Yeah. The ugly stepchild. You go over here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is that your experience with that film? Is that a common thing to where you feel like you're really involved with the creation of it versus just kind of like the finisher? They give you this.
Yeah,
you just
that's
make
right.
It first.
Yeah, it feels like they came to me because they knew I could do something for them, and I could kind of make it work. And that also does happen with finishing, though, because sometimes they'll have a composition, but it's just not working. And so you do get this. It is a similar feeling, to be honest, because you're able to just pull it together and just make it work. Like, sometimes just a few little changes here and there can just pull it together, and then when it's fully illustrated, it's combined and it's gelling together, and it works. It doesn't feel like it's many different things. It feels like one thing, and that is one of the things that I really enjoy about this job, is kind of making it work. It's like I love problem solving is one of the things I think I like to do, and when you're given things to work with, if I'm given lots of stills to work with, I can figure it out, and especially if I'm given a good sense of what the project is, it really helps, like, just kind of know. There are some projects where you work on, they give you access to 75,000 photographs, and you have a day to look through them and pick which ones you think might work, and then you're like, you don't even know what the film story is, or you don't know who the bad guy is or anything. All you've got is photographs, and it doesn't always tell you everything, and you're supposed to come up with something from that.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
To me, that's wasting time. When you want to work with someone, I think you should be able to sit with them, even on a video chat, and say, we know you can do this, we want you to do this, and this is some information that's going to help you do this, rather than we're not going to tell you anything, here's a load of photographs, make something, and then you're like, I have no clue You need a bit of
Right.
groundwork to kind of. So working with like Dallas Sonnier, who produced the Terror on the Prairie, I spoke to him, and so he was my kind of main first kind of talking to about the poster, and he said, he had this idea of the cabin and the smoke, and it's called Terror on the Prairie, but the cabin was just like, it just looked like Little House on the Prairie, because it was the cabin with the smoke. It just looked like they were having a nice time inside the cabin, and they had the fire going and the smoke was coming out the top of the cabin. That was my first thing. Was like, well, actually, we need to see some kind of terror. Like, let's like set it on fire or something, and have the protagonist outside with weapons and give it a sense of terror. So that really helped. And the relationship with the characters was important. So obviously Gina Carano was the main character, and they initially didn't want the ensemble cast on the poster, but I saw the stills of the cast which look amazing, and I'm like, we can't not have these guys in a Western cowboy style movie poster. So I was like, they're going in it. And I just put it together and I laid it out the way I thought. And that ended up being used in the cabin with the smoke and everything. So we got the best of both in one poster. And it just came out great, and they loved it, and I'm so happy that they like it. Gina was over the moon. She contacted me directly and told me, and
that's cool.
It's just so nice. Like, you feel like you're part of the team, and when that happens, that's really rewarding, because that doesn't always happen. It really doesn't. So when it does happen, it's really nice just to get a little bit of feedback, or say, this really captured. I mean, what they said about this one was, you really captured us in this movie, and this is our movie. What's on that poster feels right. It doesn't feel like it's trying to pretend to be something it's not. Actually, it's like what you see is what you get, kind of thing. And it kind of hopefully gives the audience the ability to look at the poster, for example, and say, yeah, I think I could, this is something I want to watch. That's the main aim of our job as movie poster
This
artists.
movie has terror, and I want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and also the interesting looking characters, like they all look really interesting. And Cowboy,
you see a story in each character.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it lent itself so well to it, so it was like a no-brainer for me. Anyway, that's one of the most recent things I've worked on that's just come out, and so it's just the first thing that popped into my head, really. But it was a great experience, and that's my second poster working with them.
In your experience, is it usually working with a smaller budget type of movie that you get that type of experience? You get to know the story better, to execute something better, versus the bigger studio? Usually you get like 4,000 photos, but you don't get a story.
Yeah,
has that kind of been your experience?
Generally, I mean, there's a lot of this Terror on the Prairie, there's a lot of secrecy. They didn't want to spill any beans about anything, and so, but I think I've proved myself that I don't generally, I don't really talk. If I'm working on a project, I won't really talk about it publicly until the time comes. There are artists who share work in progress, like while they're working on it. I'm like, how do you get away with that? Like, I did that once. Well, actually, I've done it a couple of times, but most times you get a slap on the wrist. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Don't show anything like that. And that was a number of years ago. With some of the bigger projects, you can't really do that. So, like, if you're working on something that's, like a limited edition print or something, which it's not as high profile, perhaps, so you might be able to show the work in progress, that kind of thing. That's okay, probably, because it's not requiring, it's not requiring any secrecy going forward. Like if you, let something slip before, you don't want anything to leak, like that kind of thing. I did share some Dune artwork I worked on. I was so proud of that working on Dune, the movie, and I saw that they used the composition on a book cover and thought, oh, that might be okay to I can maybe share that out because it's kind of been seen already, but it wasn't a good idea, so I had to kind of take it offline quick. Yeah, that's probably the most recent example of that. But they went a completely different direction to what I was working on. So it's totally out of our hands. We just generally try and provide what we can, based on what they're expecting from us, I guess. But it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I really would like to know the reasons why they did that. Because I mean, from my perspective, it's clear that they really wanted to get their money's worth out of the cast. They really were pushing. Look who's in this movie to sell it, versus the story.
Yeah, it was,
which is a shame. As someone who's read the book and likes it, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it was a shame, and I think they most of the time the people making the decisions are making the best decisions they can possible, and that's what they do. They look at everything and go, well, this feels like the right thing to do, and I think sometimes it works, and sometimes the audience and the people who are expecting things just they don't line up, and so it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think to know that they were considering something more classical, more traditional kind of movie poster is great to just know that. I think because they were exploring that concept, and I don't know what swayed it in the end, but when I was working on it, and I think other people must have been working on other concepts too for that film that were probably in the similar vein, because it was shouting for it. It really was like, this is, you see these movies that are coming out and you're like, that's gotta be that's deserving of this kind of treatment, like,
right.
You can imagine that project should have that kind of love kind of given to it. It's like, it feels like it's deserving of that. Like in June felt like one of those movies. Like, I mean, to be honest, like Blade Runner 2049, I think was probably deserving of something like that too, which it didn't get. And so you're dealing with the same people as well, I think, that are making those decisions, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I think it comes down to I think being afraid of. It might be that it might be afraid of kind of putting it out there in the thought that it might just be too throwbacky. Like it's not progressive enough. It's almost like taking a step backwards in their mind, right. Perhaps. But to me, that stuff is timeless. You can't.
Yeah, it is.
I can't look at it and go, like, I'll still look at a poster that was done in 1981 and think that's freaking awesome today. It doesn't age in that way unless it's specifically of a time period. But when it's something timeless, it feels like, even though, like, say Raiders of the Lost Ark, it was set in the 1930s. It had that serial feel about it. It felt like, it was set in a period of time, but it doesn't feel like it now doesn't feel old to me. It still feels like, I can watch that. You asked me for 3 movies, my favorite movies. Yeah. And that's the top movie for me, and it still is. Like, I actually gave you 5 movies because I thought 3 was not enough.
Oh yeah, perfect.